So why should we track behavior? Our school's disciplinary policies and practices are really part of this more comprehensive behavior support system. Tracking discipline also follows along with our PBIS framework and our expectations that we teach students and the acknowledgement system we have in place to acknowledge students for the appropriate behavior that they are engaged in. Effective discipline also includes those opportunities for students to learn and to practice those appropriate behaviors as part of our PBIS framework through a more instructional approach. So we want to provide students with the opportunity to be retaught those appropriate behaviors and practice those appropriate behaviors. So part of our rationale is that we really want to have clearly defined procedures that support consistency across all staff who are addressing behavioral concerns. This consistency in our building helps create conditions for that increased structure, that feelings of safety for all, whether students or staff, and a positive learning environment. We also want to differentiate between behaviors that are addressed in the classroom, such as minor problem behaviors, versus those addressed by administration, or major problem behaviors. We want to be able to have that distinction between minor and major to help improve consistency within the classroom, provide more meaningful information for problem solving, because now we're going to look at those minor behaviors that could turn into more destructive behaviors that could impact instruction. So we want to tackle them early before they become major problem behaviors. We also want to have a distinction between minor and major problem behaviors to increase instructional time that a student is engaged in class, so that if we send a student out for a minor problem behavior, we're sending them out of class and they are no longer part of instruction. We also want to be able to free up administrative time spent on discipline so that if we have staff address those minor problem behaviors, we're freeing up time for administrators to really then deal with those major problem behaviors, and also to reallocate that time to be instructional coaches in their building and to be able to support their teachers. So who's responsible for those minor and major problem behaviors? So those minor problem behaviors are classroom managed. They really involve the opportunities for teachable moments for students to help minimize interruption to instruction. Those office managed or major problem behaviors are behaviors that are significantly impacts instruction. They're dangerous or potentially dangerous behaviors, and they should be sent to the administrator to deal with because it does involve school and student physical and emotional safety. As part of implementing SWIS in your building, you had a team of teachers and administrators who went through the definitions and were able to define with clear, observable, and measurable definitions for minor and major problem behaviors. Now let's take a look at disruption. What would minor disruption look like and what would major disruption look like? So take a few moments and look at these two columns. As you can see, you can get a clear picture of what a minor disruption would look like and be classroom managed, and also what major disruption would look like that would mean for me as a teacher to send that student out of the classroom to the office. Over the past few years, we've also been talking about being a trauma-informed school, and we also know for some students who have experienced a trauma event in their life that they also exhibit behavior that we can observe that is disruptive in our school. As a reminder, a trauma event is anything that is deeply distressing to an individual and exceeds their capacity to cope. So we want to make sure that as we're also tracking behaviors, that we may have some students that have had that trauma experience, and so we're going to use this data to help provide supports. Also, take a moment of what trauma can look like in the classroom, that it can affect the executive functioning of a student. Also, a student's behavior could look like aggression. They could have anxiety, language deficits, and also show distraction. Now, for your next assignment, you are going to watch Why Do We Lose Control of Our Emotions? And it provides a nice example of how trauma impacts the brain and the type of behaviors that we can observe as staff.